I never thought I'd be the person writing one of these, but I'm sitting here completely numb, staring at a shattered life, and I honestly need to know if I am the monster here. Was I wrong for what I did? Or did she get exactly what she deserved? I want you to really listen to this and tell me if you would have done the same thing, because right now my family hates me, my former friends think I went too far, and I am left holding the pieces of a future that was completely stolen from me. This isn't just about a breakup. It's about a meticulous, cold-blooded betrayal by the one person I trusted with my soul. The one lover who kept claiming they hoped to marry me, while actively orchestrating my absolute ruin behind my back. If you have ever given your entire heart to someone only to find out they were a wolf in sheep's clothing, then you might understand the burning, blinding rage that took over me when the truth finally came to light. To understand how things got this dark, I have to take you back to the beginning, to a time when I thought I was the luckiest person alive. I met Sarah 4 years ago in college, and from the moment we started talking, she felt like home. She had this incredibly warm, nurturing presence, the kind of person who remembers your favorite coffee order after meeting you once, and who always seemed to know exactly what to say to make you feel like the most important person in the room. Our relationship moved at a beautiful, steady pace, and by our 3rd year together, we were talking about the future with absolute certainty. She would constantly talk about our wedding, how she wanted a small ceremony near the coast, how many kids we would have, and how she couldn't wait to officially take my last name. She would look me dead in the eyes, hold my hands, and say that I was the only lover she ever hoped to marry, that her entire life was building toward the day we set our vows. I believed every single word. I worked 2 jobs, averaging 80 hours a week, surviving on cheap coffee and 4 hours of sleep, just so I could save up for a down payment on a house, and buy the diamond ring she had subtly pinned on her Pinterest board. I sacrificed my health, my social life, and my sanity because I wanted to give this woman the world. My parents loved her, her parents treated me like a son, and on paper, we were the perfect couple. We eventually moved into a small apartment together, and while I was constantly exhausted from working, coming home to her made it all feel worth it. She was working a part-time job at a local boutique, claiming she wanted something low stress, so she could focus on building our future home. And since I was making good money, I gladly covered about 80% of our living expenses, including her car payment and insurance. I thought that's what a supportive partner does. You lift each other up. But looking back, the subtle shift started about 6 months ago, right after I finally bought the engagement ring. It was a stunning custom-made platinum ring that took me nearly a year to pay off, and it was sitting safely hidden in a locked safe in my office. Around that time, Sarah started becoming incredibly protective of her phone. She used to leave it face up on the kitchen counter all the time, but suddenly, it was always face down, always in her hand, or tucked securely under her pillow when she slept. When I asked her about it, she laughed it off, kissing my cheek and saying she was just planning a massive surprise for my upcoming birthday, and didn't want me accidentally seeing emails or text notifications. Because I trusted her blindly, I accepted that explanation and actually felt guilty for even questioning her. Then came the sudden late-night shifts at the boutique. She claimed the owner was expanding into online retail and needed her to stay late to help inventory stock and manage the new website. I would offer to pick her up, but she always insisted on driving herself, saying she didn't want to disrupt my sleep schedule since I had to be up at 5 a.m. for work. I was blinded by my own exhaustion and my absolute devotion to her. I never suspected that the woman who held me every night and talked about our future children was actually spinning a web of lies so deep it would eventually choke the life out of everything I loved. The first real crack in the facade happened on a Tuesday evening when I came home early because my boss canceled a late meeting. Sarah wasn't home, which made sense given her late-night inventory story, but she had left her laptop open on the dining table, logged into her social media. I didn't mean to snoop, I really didn't. But a notification popped up on the screen from a name I didn't recognize. A guy named Marcus. The preview of the message read, "Can't wait for next weekend, babe. Did you tell him you're visiting your mom yet?" My heart dropped into my stomach. I sat down, my hands trembling, and clicked on the chat. What I found in that message history didn't just break my heart. It completely shattered my reality. It wasn't just a casual fling. Sarah had been seeing Marcus, a wealthy guy from the next town over, for nearly 8 months. But the betrayal went so much deeper than physical infidelity. As I scrolled through hundreds of messages, I saw a calculated, malicious plot unfold. Sarah was telling Marcus that I was an abusive, controlling psycho who forced her to work and controlled all her money. She told him she was only staying with me because she was scared of what I would do if she left without a financial safety net. But the absolute worst part, the part that made me physically sick to my stomach, was a conversation from just 2 weeks prior. She had discovered the engagement ring in my safe. She had apparently guessed the combination, which was our anniversary date, taken photos of the ring, and sent them to Marcus, mocking the size of the diamond and joking about how much money she was going to get out of me before she finally dumped me. She wrote, and I quote, "He's such a pathetic loser, working himself to death for this ugly ring. I'm going to let him propose, let his wealthy parents pay for a massive engagement party, get him to put my name on the deed of the new house he's buying, and then I'm going to file for a high-conflict separation and take him for everything he's worth. He has no idea." Marcus replied with laughing emojis, calling her a genius and promising to take her on a tropical vacation with the money she took from me. She was actively using my love, my hard work, and my parents' generosity as a financial stepping stone to start a new life with another man, all while looking me in the eye every single morning and telling me I was the only lover she ever hoped to marry. I sat in that dark room for hours, staring at the screen, tears streaming down my face, feeling a mixture of profound grief and a terrifying, cold rage. The woman I loved didn't exist. She was a ghost, a fantasy I had created, and the real Sarah was a parasite. My initial instinct was to scream, to confront her the moment she walked through the door, throw her clothes out the window, and call the police for her breaking into my safe. But as I sat there, listening to the ticking of the wall clock, a strange, calm clarity washed over me. No. If I just kicked her out, she would play the victim. She would go to our friends, to our families, and tell them the lie she had already crafted. That I was a volatile, scary guy who kicked her to the curb for no reason. She would walk away unscathed, probably comforted by Marcus, and I would be left looking like the villain while trying to heal from a broken heart. She wanted a dramatic, high-stakes game? Fine. I decided right then and there that I was going to play along, but I was going to ensure that when the curtain finally fell, she would lose absolutely everything. I carefully closed the laptop, leaving it exactly as I found it, wiped my tears, and went to bed, pretending to be fast asleep when she finally sneaked into the room at 2 a.m., smelling of a cologne that definitely wasn't mine. So that's the horrific situation I was in, trapped in my own home with a monster, and I had to make a choice between walking away quietly or executing a plan that would destroy her life completely. Before I tell you the absolutely insane way I took my revenge and how the climax of this whole nightmare played out, I want you to pause right now and comment below what you would have done in my shoes. Would you have confronted her immediately and walked away? Or would you have stayed to make her pay for what she did? For the next 3 weeks, I lived a double life that felt like a psychological thriller. Every single day was an exercise in pure agony. I had to kiss her goodbye in the morning, listen to her talk about our future wedding decorations over dinner, and smile while my stomach churned with pure disgust. But behind the scenes, I was working. Oh, I was working harder than I ever had in my life. First, I went to a tech-savvy friend and learned how to securely download the entire chat history from her laptop without leaving a trace, exporting every single message, photo, and voice note between her and Marcus into a secure cloud drive and printing out multiple physical copies. Next, I consulted a cutthroat family attorney. I found out that since we weren't married and her name wasn't on any of my bank accounts or the lease of our current apartment, she had zero legal claim to my assets. However, the attorney warned me that if she caught wind of my knowledge, she could easily file a false restraining order or claim domestic abuse to force me out of the apartment, just like she had threatened in her texts. I needed to be precise. I strategically moved all my personal valuables, important documents, and that custom engagement ring out of the apartment and into a secure safety deposit box at a different bank. I also subtly convinced my parents to put a temporary hold on the wedding fund they had set aside for us, telling them that Sarah and I were thinking of doing a very private elopement instead, which kept their money completely safe. With my finances and safety secure, it was time to set the trap. Sarah's 25th birthday was coming up, and she had been dropping massive hints that she expected a grand celebration, and, most importantly, the proposal. She had invited her parents, her siblings, all of our mutual friends, and even some of my extended family to a high-end restaurant downtown for a private dinner party. She thought this was going to be the night she secured her financial future. I smiled and told her I had taken care of the entire bill, encouraging her to invite whoever she wanted. I even dropped hints that a very special surprise was waiting for her. She was ecstatic, practically glowing with the anticipation of her impending victory. Little did she know, I had contacted the restaurant coordinator and paid an extra fee to use their large projector screen, ostensibly for a romantic birthday slideshow, tracking our 4 years together. The night of the party arrived. The private dining room was beautiful, filled with laughter, expensive wine, and about 30 people who mattered most to us. Sarah looked stunning, wearing a brand new dress she bought using my credit card, sitting at the head of the table like a queen. Throughout the dinner, she kept looking at me, touching my hand, and glancing at my jacket pockets to see if there was a ring box hidden inside. I played the part of the doting, deeply in love boyfriend perfectly, raising toasts to her beauty and her kindness. Her parents were beaming, thanking me for making their daughter so happy. My own mother had tears in her eyes, believing her son was about to take the biggest step of his life. The tension in my chest was suffocating, but I held it together, waiting for the perfect moment. Finally, dessert was served, and the room grew quiet. I stood up, tapping my glass with a spoon, and the entire room turned to look at me. Sarah smiled broadly, leaning forward, her eyes locked on me, expecting me to drop to one knee. I started my speech by thanking everyone for coming to celebrate the woman who had been the center of my universe for 4 years. I talked about how hard I had worked to build a future for us, how many sacrifices I had made, and how Sarah had constantly reminded me that I was the only lover she ever hoped to marry. I saw her mother wipe a tear, and Sarah smiled, her hand going to her mouth in mock surprise. Then I paused. My tone shifted from warm and loving to icy cold. I looked directly at Sarah and said, "But lately, I've realized that our love story isn't the only story being told. In fact, Sarah has been writing a completely different script behind my back, and since we are all family and friends here, I think it's only fair that we all share in her creative genius." The room went dead silent. The confusion on Sarah's face was instant, her smile faltering as she asked, "Babe, what are you doing?" I didn't answer her. I simply nodded to the restaurant staff member standing by the AV equipment. The lights dimmed, and the massive projector screen came alive. But instead of a romantic slideshow of our vacation photos, the screen displayed a massive, crystal-clear screenshot of Sarah's text messages with Marcus. Specifically, the message where she called me a pathetic loser, mocked my engagement ring, and detailed her exact plan to let my wealthy parents pay for a massive party, trick me into putting her name on a house deed, and then ruin me financially through a fraudulent separation. The room gasped. For a solid 10 seconds, there was absolute, stunned silence as people read the words on the screen. Then the slide changed, showing time-stamped photos of Sarah and Marcus kissing outside a hotel, followed by her text messages claiming I was abusive and controlling just to manipulate Marcus into helping her. Sarah's face went from pale to a ghostly, sickly white. She literally stopped breathing. She sprang up from her chair, knocking over her wine glass, red wine spilling across the white tablecloth like blood. She screamed at the top of her lungs, "Turn it off! Turn it off! This is a lie. He hacked me, this isn't real." But it was too late. I reached into my jacket pocket, pulled out a thick manila envelope containing the printed copies of the entire text log, and slammed it onto the table right in front of her father. I looked her father in the eye, a man I genuinely respected, and said, "Sir, I loved your daughter with everything I had. I worked 80 hours a week for her. Here is the proof of who she really is. I suggest you read it." Her father, completely bewildered and horrified, opened the envelope and began reading the first page. His face turned a deep, angry red as he looked up at his daughter, his voice trembling as he asked her, "Sarah, what is the meaning of this? Is this true?" Sarah began to hyperventilate, sobbing hysterically, reaching out to me, trying to grab my hands, crying, Please, it was a mistake. I was just playing around. I love you. You're the only one I want to marry. I stepped back, avoiding her touch as if she were venomous. I looked around the room at our mutual friends, who were staring at her with utter disgust and horror, and at my own parents, who were standing up, completely shocked but fiercely protective, moving to stand by my side. I looked at Sarah one last time, completely devoid of any emotion, and said, "The apartment lease is in my name. Your things are already packed in trash bags and sitting in the garage. The locks have been changed. You have until tomorrow morning to collect them, or they go to the landfill. Have a great birthday, Sarah." With that, I walked out of the private dining room, my parents and my true friends following close behind me, leaving Sarah screaming, crying, and completely cornered by her own family who were demanding answers. The aftermath was an absolute cyclone of drama. Sarah tried calling and texting me hundreds of times from different numbers, begging for forgiveness, claiming Marcus meant nothing to her, and that she was just scared of commitment. When I blocked every single number, she actually had the audacity to send Marcus to my apartment to confront me. But when Marcus realized that Sarah had lied to him too, that I wasn't an abusive monster, but a guy who had just exposed her entire fraud to her traditional, strict family, he realized he had been used as a pawn in her financial game. Marcus ended up dumping her on the spot, terrified of being dragged into a public scandal or potential legal trouble. Sarah's family was so deeply ashamed of her actions that her father forced her to move out of the city and back into their small hometown, making her pay them back for the embarrassment she caused. She lost her job at the boutique because the owner didn't want the drama associated with her store, and virtually all of our mutual friends completely ghosted her. However, the scorched earth nature of my revenge split our social circle. While my family and closest friends supported me entirely, a few people claimed that exposing her private messages on a giant screen in front of her parents was unnecessarily cruel and public humiliation, saying I should have just left her quietly. They called me vindictive and cold-blooded. But honestly, I don't regret a single thing. She tried to systematically destroy my life, my reputation, and my financial future while playing the part of a loving future wife. She wanted to play games with my heart, so I simply handed her the consequences of her own actions on a silver platter. I survived the betrayal, I kept my dignity, I kept my money, and I returned that engagement ring for a full refund, using the cash to take myself on a solo trip to Europe to heal and start over. Looking back on this entire mess, I learned that the people who scream the loudest about wanting a future with you are sometimes the ones most willing to set your present on fire. True love isn't found in grand promises of marriage while hiding a phone. It's found in respect, honesty, and consistency when no one else is watching. If you survived a betrayal like this, just know that your worth isn't defined by someone else's inability to appreciate your loyalty. If you think I did the right thing by exposing her, or if you think I went a little too far with the projector stunt, please hit that like button to show your support. Subscribe to the channel so you never miss another crazy story. And drop your final thoughts on this whole disaster in the comments below. I read every single one of them. Thank you for listening, stay safe out there, and I'll see you all in the next story.